Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of The Conversation with me, Jordan Brown. Today we have another special guest. All our guests are special. Corey A. Jackson, a local nonprofit and civil rights leader specializing in youth development, culturally responsive interventions, and social justice issues. He currently serves as the founder and chairman / CEO of SBX Youth and Family Services, whose mission is to break the cycle of poverty and violence through mentoring, education, and community organizing. Corey Jackson was elected to Riverside County Board of Education in 2020 and represents the Riverside, Moreno Valley, and Val Verde Unified School Districts. Mr. Jackson is an expert in Afrocentric interventions for middle school and high school adolescents and continues to serve his community as the political action chair of the Riverside NAACP. He also serves as the youth minister at the Moreno Valley Church of Christ. Being appointed by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to the California State University Board of Trustees, Corey represented over 400,000 students in the largest and most respected public higher education system in the nation from 2004 to 2006. Jackson is a graduate of Cal State San Bernardino, where he received his degree in political science and served as the chair of the Santo Manuel Student Union Board of Directors. He is also a graduate of California Baptist University, where he received his master's degree in social work. Corey Jackson's priorities include dismantling the school to prison pipeline and combating systemic racism. I am so lucky to have Corey Jackson on the show today. I hope you enjoy our conversation. All right, good afternoon, Corey. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're lucky to have you here. Welcome, welcome. So I guess I would love for you to just start off and tell the guests just a little bit about you and the work that you do, the things that you're passionate about.
Sure. Corey Jackson. I am CEO of SBX Youth and Family Services based in Moreno Valley, where our mission is to break the cycle of poverty and violence through mentoring, education, and community organizing. So our goal is to really make sure that we provide a better future for our children. And to do that, we have got to change the quality of life here in the Inland Empire to make that happen. I do most of my work through that organization, of course, a member of the Riverside NAACP, and also sit on the Riverside County Board of Education.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for your work and time that you spend doing all of this. Would you tell us a little bit more in depth about the work that you do specifically with the SBX Youth and Family Services?
Sure. Well, primarily when we first got started about 10 years ago, we focused mostly just on mentoring students of color, particularly African American boys, where we make sure that on a weekly basis that these young people have people that they can trust, people that could really show them the support necessary for them to learn how to have healthy relationships. But then, of course, as we began to develop our work and serve more and more young people, we realized that we were just pulling babies out of the river. And what we needed to do was go up the river and find out who in the world are throwing these babies in the river in the first place, right? And so we made a strategic decision to get involved in system change work to be able to affect policies and work with decision makers to break the school to prison pipeline that too many students of color are involved in.
Wow, I think that is so powerful, especially, talking about systems change, because I think, a lot of the political rhetoric right now is speaking about, these very isolated events, but we know through so much research that all of these things are systematic, and it's really important to look for the root, look for the source of where these problems and issues are coming from. And that way we can literally tackle what the main issue is, so that there is no trickle down, so that we can really cut off immediately what these different pipelines are. And I think that this is incredible work. Do you have any, I don't know if you can share, but I would love to hear some success stories, or some just challenges maybe that you've been through within doing this mentorship work.
Sure. Well, I mean, the most significant thing that we did was our partnership with the ACLU to sue Riverside County probation, where we found out that basically young people were systematically targeted and put on what they called voluntary probation, and found out that so many of their civil liberties and civil rights were being violated. And through a settlement agreement, we were able to clear the records of thousands of young people throughout Riverside County, to the point where after our settlement agreement was enacted, out of thousands of young people being in this program every year, not one young person is in that program now. So we completely eliminated that pipeline to prison for young people, especially in our most diverse cities like Moreno Valley and Paris and Coachella.
Wow. Oh my goodness. See, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I feel like this is a story that more people need to hear about. This is fascinating work and really important work. And I know that you've even taken this on a more wider scale, with working on the Riverside County Board of Education. Can you tell me what made you decide to run for the board?
Well, after a while, you kind of get tired of always trying to be on the outside, barking in, hoping that you convince people to do things that you see. And so my goal was to make sure that, well, you know what, I want to be in that inside and work from the inside out, to be able to affect the type of changes that need to happen. Of course, even that's a long slog, when you're trying to convince your colleagues and others to get the votes necessary to do it. But I believe that African Americans in particular, all people in general, need to fully exercise their God-given rights to participate in all areas of society. So that's not just in the civil, civically. That's not just personally, right? We need to vote. We need to run for office. We need to get involved in community work. We need to be involved in our faith, practicing our faith, all aspects. We need to fully exercise our humanity. And that's just what I'm trying to do.
So let's see. So how long have you been on the board?
So I've only been on the board for almost going on 2 years now.
Okay, that's a good amount of time. Let's see. So I know that you've been talking about, all of these things that you did before then, and what took you up to leading. What is it like actually being in that space?
Well, it's a lot of responsibility. I mean, you feel the weight of making sure that you deliver as much as you can. That you not only think of yourself as just being on that board and doing what you need to do in those meetings, but what does it mean to exercise, your participation in all aspects of the community and where you represent? So that just means I don't believe that, my work is just done during those meetings. I believe my work is done every day in various capacities. I consider myself a servant of the people, which means that, if I see something wrong, no matter where it may be, if it's even, I do work with the county board of supervisors, right? I'm not a member of that board, but you better believe I'm going to do whatever I can if it's going to help the people that I'm supposed to be serving, right? And so we're kind of taught to stay in our lanes, right? And to leave other things alone. But I think that argument is only used when they want to control you and limit your ability to affect change.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like a lot of times we're taught to do this sort of like streamlined way of working and doing activist work. You can only focus on one thing. You got to be an expert in that one thing, and then stay there. But in order for one thing to work, it has to be community centered. It has to work around so many different things because nothing is isolated, really. Nothing is isolated. And I think that that's really important to look at in the way that you approach your work because, you want to help kids in one aspect and other aspects and in different spaces, different people from all different walks of life. And you have to really come from this holistic point of view to be able to do that. And so I feel like that's something that you're doing in your work. Now, in the way of, I guess, what needs to change and what else needs to be done, because obviously, you've done a lot of work so far, but you're still doing this work because you're not satisfied and we're not satisfied as a society and where things need to go. I wonder, what do you believe needs to change in just the education system in general here in America, I'll say, to invoke not only inclusivity, but equity for our Black and Brown students?
Absolutely. Equity is used a lot, but I always make sure that I'm not put in an equity box, right? Everything is viewed as that's that popular thing that's going on right now. But what does equity really mean? The true root meaning of equity is what's fair and what's just, right? And so when you think about what's fair and what's just, you have to think about, if I am an African American student, is it fair or just that I am only being taught how to be a European every day, right? And if I'm lucky, I'll have a school that says, okay, you're important too. So out of the 5 classes, we'll give you 1 class, maybe half a year, to learn something about yourself, right? Is that fair? Is that just? Is it fair or just, right, that that I have to spend my day on a school campus, walking, trying to participate in my various affairs on campus, but I am being watched over by law enforcement, the traditional oppressor of my people, right? Is that fair? Is that just? Is it fair or just that I'm only allowed to wear things that European society deems are okay for me to wear, or to talk the way they want me to talk? And if I don't, right, I am punished for that. I'm marginalized for that. Is that fair? Is that just? So we have really got to understand, right, that this education system as it exists today, as much as we try to nibble around the edges, has never been made for people of color, right? It's just now the laws are forcing people to allow us to be in those spaces, but it's still designed to conform, to turn us into what they want us to be in society, right? And if you don't get with the program, we got many ways to get you out and to punish you for that.
I really like the way you put that, talking about, is it fair and just, and going beyond just like classroom curriculum, but really there's so much like performance and presentation in just showing up to school in general. And I think that is, I think that that's a major thing to focus on, because I feel like just looking creatively, a lot of our students are stunted because we have to show up to school in uniforms, or we have to act the same way. Otherwise, we face fear of that punishment. And, what does it look like to be able to express ourselves in the classroom and to be able to come as our full selves? I feel like so many students are just kind of like having to shrink themselves down to fit into the space of the classroom. And that is extremely detrimental. And it's interesting because I'm actually doing some research within my PhD program right now and looking at how holistic education can create this different cultural shift so that we can really combat and change the earth-human relationship. My work is looking into climate change. And so I'm looking at restoration. There is this botanist in New York out of Syracuse. Her name is Robin Kimmer, and she talks about this idea of restoration. And restoration is changing our cosmology stories and changing our origin stories to really understand, like, foundationally, how humans interact with the earth and how we can go about that relationship. And it's really interesting because restoration leads us into restoration and restoring that relationship and really changing things. And I think that we can bring that same conversation within changing the education system, because we have this idea that when you're going into education, specifically within higher education though, we have this idea when you step into higher education, you're there so that you can graduate and get the job after you go. And it's not really about knowledge attainment anymore. It's about just, how can I get the job? How can I get the qualifications so that when I'm done, I'm ready, I have the money to go and I can support myself. But there's so much that we lose when we frame the story that way. And so with this restoration of higher education and really so many different steps in our education system, we can really change the way that students learn and the way that students are able to be in the classroom and are able to be outside of the classroom and to be able to create better critical thinking skills and really come at learning with this passion for learning versus this, oh, I have to go to school again. Oh my gosh, I have to get on the Zoom for all day long and it's just, I don't want to be here. And, we can really change our attitudes about that personally. And then systematically, if we change the attitudes, then students are already going to immediately change their attitudes when they get into this classroom space, because it's going to feel different.
Research shows that young people are more engaged, have higher academic outcomes. Number one, if they have a higher sense of racial or ethnic identity, knowing who you are and where you stand in this world, and what your lens of the world is, but then also if the curriculum reflects their human condition, right? And so it's actually our fault that they're not interested in education, because all they're doing is learning about other people that are not connected to them.
Right, we have to be
right. And we're not authentic enough in what we do. And so I don't want to say I think, but it's research driven that we are missing the mark. We're continuing to just say, this is what we think is good for you, and you just need to get with the program, right? And your humanity, what you feel, what you think is not really that important, right? What's important is that you think this way, and it's usually from a Eurocentric perspective.
Yeah, Bell Hooks actually wrote a book about teaching. She's one of my favorite authors right now. And I was reading her book, and she's talking about how students come into the classroom with knowledge, and they come into the classroom with things to share. They already know things, they have value before they get there. And when we get into this classroom space, we act as if they're absolved of all this knowledge and we're just there to put knowledge into the students. And it's like, there's so much that we can do with sharing information and asking students what they need, because we get into these classrooms and we make students feel like they're inferior, and they're not. They have so much, I don't even want to say potential, because they already come full of experience experience and full of different knowledges from their cultural heritages, from their specific life experiences and worldviews. And, you know, especially here in Inland Empire, we have students from everywhere and students from all types of walk that have experienced so many different things. And that I don't want to say melting pot. I don't care for that term, but because I don't have another term, I use melting pot. This melting pot of students, and then, you know, really can stir up a conversation, make the classroom interesting. And I think our education system doesn't value that at all. And it is really sad. And I really hope to see something change within that.
Well, if you really love that, you'll love the book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, that also talks about it from an empowerment standpoint, right? That talks about that every single human being has something to give, has something to add to the conversation. But too often, all of us are taught this way. Think about what we really say, right? Particularly in the African American community, we usually say, you know, I would love to pour into them, right? What does that mean? That means I'm trying to create a mini me, right? I want to make you more like me, instead of saying, no, I want to pull out of you who you are, what your essence is, the wisdom and knowledge you inherently have in yourself. Because if you're tied to your culture, culture is basically wisdom and survival techniques and a way to view the world passed on from one generation to the next, right? There's richness in there, right? That we all can benefit from. And I think that there's a way, if you understand your own humanity, you'll appreciate other people's humanity even more, because you want them to have what you have, right? I want I want another person who is not from the same culture to understand their culture, because I know how much it has enriched me. I want to honor their culture. I want to learn from their culture, because I know it not only benefits me even more, right? But it benefits everybody. And then you can really truly fall in love with humanity, because it's such a beautiful thing to connect with yours and then to connect with others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you're passionate about these things and you're working within the community. What does the community response look like from your efforts within the Board of Education, as well as SBX Youth and Family Services?
You know, it's just an honor to be able to serve and to be able to fully participate in society in all aspects. But of course, with that, you have those who are not going to agree with you. There are going to be those who come from a place of hatred, that do what they can to get you out of the picture. But you realize that, hey, if you're not doing, if their people are not complaining, then you're not doing enough, right? You're not focusing on the right things, because the things that we need to focus on make people feel uncomfortable, and you're challenging their own thought process that they grew up. Imagining growing up all your life thinking and believing a certain way, only to be told that's wrong. And matter of fact, some of it actually is evil, right? You're not going to take too kindly to that, right? And so, but overall, it's my hope that people appreciate it, that others are willing to join into this work. Or if it's not the specific work I'm involved in, find something to do something. But doing nothing should not be an option. We literally have an opportunity to provide a better life for the next generation. And I don't know about anybody else. I do not want to be on my deathbed and some young person asks me, what did you do when you saw how bad the future could be? Right? I'm trying to have the longest list possible so they can say, oh, okay, great, now let me carry it on, right? I mean, that's our sacred responsibility. And right now we are providing them with a society that is more violent. We are providing them with a society, earth that is more unhealthy. We are providing them with so many things that we know in our gut is wrong, right? But we are on the verge of passing all that junk to the next generation. They deserve better. And it's going to take all of us working together to make this happen.
Yes. Sacred responsibility. I just have to, sacred responsibility. I think that is such a powerful statement. I actually want to end on that note. But if you could, I don't know, you really said what you needed to say. I don't know what to, ooh. Sorry, I got wow, took my breath away. That was amazing. I think that's what I needed to hear. I've been asking for clarity on the work that I'm doing, and I think I just got it. So thank you very much. Wow, sacred responsibility. I think that's definitely.
But think about this. Okay. You are now the third generation of your family to continue this work, right? Mm-hmm. It was your grandparents' sacred responsibility to provide a better path and a better life moving forward to your parents. And then your parents had a sacred responsibility to prepare you and to hopefully provide a better society for you, right? Now, guess what? Now you have to be prepared to assume that sacred responsibility. And at this point, what we have to do is exercise as much of recognize our God-given talents, sharpen them, right? And put them to use as much as possible, right? So then you can be in the best position to honor that sacred responsibility then to the next generation. But it's not just your kids that you yourself have to feed and shelter. No, we have to get back to that sacred responsibility of all of our people, that every child in our community is our child. We all have a responsibility for educating and preparing them. So if there's a child in our community that is not prepared and is not provided with the same opportunities that others have, that is our fault, right? And so our ancestors knew this. Our ancestors knew about that sacred responsibility to prepare and to provide and to provide a better opportunities for the next generation. And unfortunately, all the data shows that every generation moving forward could possibly do worse than the past generation. Horrific legacy that I refuse to be a part of.
We're gonna make it better. I definitely, even with this conversation, there's so many people, I don't even know the people yet, but there's so many people having this conversation right now, talking about, what do we need to do? How can we make it better? How can we make sure that there is just this beautiful sense of love and community within the future generations? How can we restore, going back to restoration? How can we really restore our communities and make this the place that we want to live? Because I think that, imagination is so important right now. How can what do we want things to look like? That has to come from our heart. That has to come from our collective dreaming and imagination of these things. What do we actually want to see? And I think I'm going to leave us there. Thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we're all proud of the work that you're doing and proud of all the people who you're participating with.
Thank you so much to our special guest, Corey Jackson, for joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed the show here with me at home. And remember, as always, to stay safe and mask up. I want to encourage everyone to support the great work that we are doing so that we can continue to bring great content, because what we do it for you, seriously, and we are all in this together. We can't do it without your support. So for more information, please visit our website, blackvoicenews.com, or click one of the links below in our description. It's the act that matters, not the amount. So donate today. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you real soon. Peace out.